Hi everyone, this is a video as to how you're going to make the Alice body to put onto your teacup. So what I'm starting with is, once again, a pound of fondant with Tylose powder, or 50-50 ratio of fondant and gum paste. And I'm starting with a styrofoam dress body, I guess you'd call it. So this is going to be the base for the dress and where the legs are going to stick onto. So you can do this also in Rice Krispie treats, but I think what you're going to have to do if you do that is let the Rice Krispie treat sit for a while, because I found that it's really too gushy. And then when you put it on a skew to let everything dry, the skew actually will go right into the Rice Krispie treat. So this is better to have using a styrofoam. I'll have a template for you to make sure that you get the right size. So what I did is I just carved this out of a piece of styrofoam with a serrated knife. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cover this with Crisco. And then I'm just going to take my bench scraper and just cut them in half. They don't have to be perfect. You can just eyeball it. And then I'm just gonna go and start ruffling with my ball tool at the edge. Don't worry about if it's gonna tear or anything like that. It's all gonna kind of blend in together anyway. And I'm putting a lot of pressure on this to kind of pull it and stretch it to give it that ruffle effect. With a back and forth motion. So my ball tool would be half on and half off the ruffle or the dress. Okay, so we have that. So since this is the bottom, this is going to actually be placed on or in the teacup. This is where the legs are going to be popped out. So what you want to do is you want to wet the inner side. Make sure that this is working. Okay, so, and you want to place this around the very top of this piece. And you want to adhere it as best as you can. So it's going to flop around a little bit. That's okay. It won't do that once you start building around it. Okay, so then I'm going to add another piece. Around the other side. If you have extra, what I'm just doing is I'm just adhering to the other piece, the first piece. And I'm going to wet this corner here and adhere it to the first ruffle. So I'm just going to kind of scrunch these up, because this is really, it's supposed to be kind of like her petticoat. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is then I'm going to go a little bit farther down, than the first ruffle. And I'm going to cover that first seam. So as you can see, as I go down, I'm going farther down. So I'm building it where it's layering farther down. And then I'm going to go cover that other seam just like I did on this side. So I'm just kind of molding it into the form. And then I'm going to take this corner and just adhere it to the other ruffle. Now, if you find that it's flopping everywhere and you're kind of worried about that, what you're going to do is then you're just going to take a skew, stick it in there, and then you're going to work from a styrofoam piece. And it'll be easier to see as well since it's not flopping everywhere. So just make sure that you're going the right direction. So I'm going to go farther down, covering this seam. And see how that looks. I'm covering that last seam. And this is a lot easier to work with when it's standing straight up. Okay, so it's starting to take shape. Okay, so then we're going to go to the next size, and this is a smaller size circle. We're going to do actually 3 of the next size. And this is, I'm sorry, we're actually going to do 2 of the next size. So first 3 circles at 3.5 inches, and then 2 more circles at 3 inches. So this will be a smaller ruffle. we're just going to repeat the process of the previous 3 that we did. Okay, we're going to wet before. And we're just going to go farther down. So this is going to go just farther down over the previous longer one. So as you can see, it's a bit shorter, and it's meant to just give it a little bit more ruffle. And you can also frill these as well, because it's going to start to fall down because of gravity. So you can kind of fluff them up as they're drying. Okay, so this is the last one. As you can see, really there's just a lot of ruffles under there, which that's what you want. Okay, so as time goes on, this is gonna, if you have it upright, okay, then it's going to start to dry that way, which is fine. You want these to kind of be facing upward. Okay, so that's what you want. You actually want her legs to be a bit hidden inside of that first ruffle, and that is going to help accomplish that if you have it upside down like this. Okay, so now for her actual bottom of her dress. So you're going to take some light blue fondant. It could be lighter than this if you want. This is what I had available. And you want this fairly thin as well. Bigger than I anticipated. So what I'm going to do then is instead I'm going to do 5 inches. And this is a 5-inch round. So I was definitely off on that one. Okay, so let's just drape that on. So that's going to be perfect. 5 inches will be perfect. I'm just putting that on her just to kind of see how it looks. Just adjusting a little bit. And that's perfect. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet this area. I'm going to wet part of the ruffle. Okay. Okay, so, and if you need to adjust, go ahead before adhering it completely down. That's what I'm doing right now. I just want to make sure that it's laying even around. Okay, so now I'm going to start just pressing a bit. Okay. And then from here, I'm thinking this might be the front of her. So from here, we're going to make a little apron. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, to make sure that I have the right size, I want to have the apron start at the edge here. So you're going to have it start at the edge, and it's going to kind of flare out and it's going to go over the ruffles here. So I'm going to measure that. So I want something at 1.5 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my mat to cut a straight line. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to use this corner, so this will start here, and that's 1.5. Just going to make a little indent right there. And then what I want to do is I kind of just want to gauge how far I want to get this. So I'm thinking like 2 3/4 wide by 1 3/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the top 1 3/4. Okay, and then just gonna make a straight edge and get it as straight as possible. You can always use your mat as well to figure out if you're straight or not. Okay, so that's 1 3/4. Now I'm going to, what I want to do is so I should have this wider. So what I want to do is I'm going to make a mark here at 1, and then I want the bottom of her apron to be 2 3/4. Okay, so basically I'm just going to try to figure out the center of 2 3/4. And that is 1 3/8, I believe. Okay. So that center mark, okay, so here's the 2 marks from the bottom of her apron. I want the top of her apron to be 1 1/2, I believe. 1 1/2, yes. So basically 1 1/2, middle of 1 1/2 is 3/4. So I'm going to make 2 marks there at the 1.5 mark and at the 1. All right. So all these marks, I'm going to actually use the other side so you don't see the marks, and I'm just going to make a angled cut based on these marks. Okay, so there you have her little apron. And I'll have these measurements written down. Okay, so then what I do want to have is a little bit of a ruffle, just a little bit at the bottom of this. Just kind of make it flare out a little bit. Okay, and then I'm just gonna glue the top and the sides and then place it so I'm just kind of adhering it a little bit, kind of fluffing it up a bit, making it look a little bit alive so it's not so stuck on there. All right. So then if you look at this from upside down, it'll start to make sense. Okay. And then her legs are going to go in here. So, but you want to really make sure that this is nice and dry before you put your legs on so that this billow of her skirt is not flapping downward. So I would say a day, maybe 2.